this video, we're going to be looking at using the standard normal table. So we can use the standard normal table to find the probability that z is less than or equal to a certain value. And so here that keyword is for less than or equal to. So this is handy for if we find those z-scores for a normal distribution. We can use this table to find the probability that z is less than or equal to that certain z-score that we found. So for example, just to see how this table works, let's say we want to find the probability that z is less than or equal to negative 0.4. What I'm going to do is on this left-hand column, I am going to find that number that's in front of the decimal. So here I see that's 0. Let's move to a pen. So I see that's 0. So I'm going to go, or negative 0 on that hand. And so I'm going to go to this highlighted column. And then to see what column I'm going to actually get my value, I'm going to look at what my number is on the right-hand side of the decimal place. And so here that was 0.4, so that's why we went to this column. And then we found that that probability that z is less than or equal to negative 0.4 is 0.3446. And so we can still relate this back to what we learned about last time in our normal curve here. And so here, since this is standard normal distribution, we have these. Mean of 0, standard deviation of 1. And so if I'm looking at negative 0.4, that's going to be somewhere around here. And I'm looking at everything less than that. So that's everything here. If I'm looking at that area, I can see that it's reasonable to say that that area is about 34.46% of it. So that's one way that you can kind of check to make sure that you did things correctly. So let's practice finding that. So here I'm going to find each probability using the standard normal table. So first I have probability that z is less than or equal to 1.5. So here I have a 1 I'm starting with, so I'm going to go to the 1 column here, and I want to go to 0.5. And so traveling all the way to 0.5, I see that that is going to be right there. And so that probability is going to be 0.9332. Okay, now the next one says probability that z is greater than or equal to negative 0.7. So here, remember I said that this just tells us the probability that z is less than or equal to that value. This one is saying greater than or equal to. Well, something that we can remember here is that the area underneath the curve is equal to 1. And so that means if I want everything greater than or equal to it, I could go ahead and take everything less than it, but subtract it from 1. So this is going to be equal to 1 minus the probability that z is less than or equal to negative 0.7. So I'm going to go to negative 0.7, so I'm starting at negative 0, and I want to go to 0.7, so that is going to be this value right here. So I have 1 minus 0.2420. And so when I do that, 1 minus 0.2420, I get that this is equal to 0.758. And you can kind of check your work again up here. If I go to negative 0.7 here, I'm looking at everything greater, and I can see that it's reasonable to say that's about 75%. Okay, now let's look at one more. So here I have the probability of negative 1.1 is less than or equal to z, which is less than or equal to 2.3. So here I am looking at this area right here of negative 1.1 to 2.3. So I see that's going to be a pretty large area. And so here we can still use the table. And the trick here is that we want to find first the probability that z is less than or equal to 2.3. And I want to find the probability of z is greater than or equal to negative 1.1. But again, that's going to be equal to 1 minus the probability that z is less than or equal to negative 1.1. So in the end, with some maneuvering around, this is actually just going to equal to the probability z is less than or equal to 2.3 minus probability that z is less than or equal to negative 1.1. And we can do that from the symmetry here. Because right here we have z is less than or equal to 2.3. That's going to be this entire thing. But I want to subtract off the part where z is less than or equal to negative 1. I want to subtract off this part. And so then that will give me what I see here in blue. And so going to this table here, 2.3 goes to the 2.3, and that is 0.9893. Minus probability z is less than negative 1.1. So I go to negative 1.1, and that is 0.1357. And when I subtract those numbers, I get 0.8536.